Everybody knows about failed consoles. Consoles that just didn't make the grade, didn't sell enough units, maybe they didn't have a killer app. But there are a lot of consoles out there that are failed that we remember. Things like the Dreamcast, the N-Gage, Atari's Jaguar. All of these systems are consoles that basically failed in the eyes of the public, but are remembered in some unique way. But what happens when a console fails so fast and so hard that nobody knew about it when it came out? Well, I think I found one. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nuon. Nuon was developed by a company called VM Labs and released sometime in the early 2000s. The company was started up by a guy named Richard Miller, who at one point was the vice president of the Atari Corporation. In fact, some of the people who worked at VM Labs were also from Atari, and this is really important. If you remember your gaming history, Atari was responsible for the Atari Jaguar, a failed console that was marketed as the first 64-bit system. Not to be outdone, and to replicate the obvious success of the Jaguar, VM Labs claimed that Nuon was an 128-bit system. Unlike the Jaguar, however, this system had a way better plan. You see, years prior to the release of the first Nuon system, a guy named Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of Electronic Arts, released a console called the 3DO, another failed system, but not for lack of trying. The idea behind the 3DO was to allow external parties to produce their console while the 3DO company would develop and publish games. This concept, while unique and really interesting, turned out to be a horrible idea. The companies that would build the 3DO, like Panasonic, Sanyo, and Goldstar, wouldn't see any of the profit from game sales. That meant that they would have to sell the consoles at seriously high prices. Initially, the launch price was said to be sold at $599 in the US, and this really damaged the system from making any real impact in the market, because that was really expensive. So why am I bringing up the 3DO? Well, the Nuon was pretty much marketed the exact same way. Only to be honest, the way that they did it was freaking genius. The Nuon technology was built into a selection of DVD players produced by Samsung, Toshiba, and RCA, and back in the early 2000s, DVDs were a pretty hot item. So unlike the 3DO, it was easier to mass produce a system bundled with this strange video game playing ability, because someone who needed a DVD player could still conceivably buy the thing without having any interest in playing video games. The model you see here is the very first Nuon ever produced, called the Extiva DVD-N2000. It was released in July 2000 at a retail price of about $349 American, but there are several Nuon-capable DVD players that were released. However, all of them are different, and some don't even play games. But why would they release this technology on a DVD player without the ability to play games? Well, there's a reason for that. There were 4 DVD movies produced that had special menus only accessible by watching them on a Nuon-capable DVD player. These movies included Dr. Dolittle 2, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Bedazzled, and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes remake. Ouch. I managed to get my hands on the last 2 films on the list, because seriously, I didn't need those other ones. And friends, it's nothing special. Pretty much all the Nuon features are limited to a special section accessible from the basic DVD menu. The features range from the ability to zoom into footage, watch storyboards and art slides while a movie plays, and even an early attempt at chapter selection with video playing to help identify a scene. While it's true that regular DVDs at the time were not capable of these features, the Nuon struggles to load these sequences, leaving you waiting for sometimes a full minute before sequences can actually happen. Ever since the arrival of Blu-rays, the special features for Nuon DVD movies pretty much faded, as Blu-rays could produce better and more interesting experiences with less of a loading screen. Since I'm kind of a film buff, the selection of these 4 titles seems really strange to me. I mean, if they had any hope of this technology really taking off, why would they use such unwanted films? It seemed like 20th Century Fox had some interest in this technology, even going so far as to make an announcement of its use at CES in 2001. So why not use a movie like X-Men, or Independence Day, Die Hard, Alien, or even Fight Club, as its home video release was much more popular and sought after than its initial release in theaters? There was a wealth of movies to pick from. I mean, guys, they're 20th Century Fox, it's not like they're lacking. I mean, come on, who runs out to buy a brand new DVD player loaded with all this amazing technology to watch some special features from Dr. Dolittle 2? Ugh. So fine, if you weren't gonna go get this for movies, what were the games like? Well, this is where the story gets really sad. There are only 8 Nuon games that were ever released. Ballistic, which is a port of a puzzle game available on the PlayStation. The game was packed in with one of the models of the Nuon. The next Tetris, another bundled-in game, also available on the PlayStation, and Iron Soldier 3, the third part in a series of games that came out for the Atari Jaguar. Like the last 2 games though, this one is also available on the PlayStation. But then we come to Space Invaders XL. Finally, a game not available on any other platform. However, it doesn't need to be. The game is pretty much a slightly more colorful Space Invaders, really putting that 128-bit chip to the limits with this game. Why even bother? Now the next game is funny. Technically, Nuon does indeed have only 8 released games, but one of them was released on a Korean Nuon system that was region locked. So unless you care enough for it, you can't play this game on any other Nuon on the planet. As if that wasn't hard enough, if you happen to own the specific Korean Nuon system, you won't be able to play any of the other Nuon games on it because of region locking. That means that this Nuon system exists solely to play this one game. What an epic fail. So that leaves us with 3 games, all of which are unique to the Nuon. So let's start off with Merlin Racing. Merlin Racing is exactly what it looks like, a Diddy Kong Racing and Mario Kart 64 ripoff. To begin, let's look at the arcade mode. It utilizes multiple vehicles, but they all pretty much handle exactly the same. Nothing like the variety that Diddy Kong Racing offers. It's easy to see the similarities between these 2 games, but as for gameplay, it feels more like a very unpolished Mario Kart 64. Everything from the controls, the items you use, and the track design is just basic. Racing feels like a chore and incredibly difficult. The head racer will always be faster than you. I imagine they did this because they wanted to make you feel like you had some competition on the track, but it just doesn't work. In the majority of races, it feels impossible to win. Although you will win some races just by chance, it will always feel like it was a fluke. There isn't even a gradual climb in difficulty. The game outright ups the difficulty after the first level, it seems. I wasn't able to get very far in this game mode at all, and frankly, I didn't want to. It's pretty terrible. Believe it or not, this game actually has an adventure mode with a plot. And here it is. Merlin the Magician is captured by the evil witch Preva, who has stolen 4 Zistral crystals that give Merlin his powers. Without his power, he's defenseless against Preva, who hides all of the crystals behind some doors that are locked with keys. Your job as one of the creatures in this universe is to enter some kind of race and win all of the races and get all the keys, opening all the doors and collecting all 4 Zistral crystals to free Merlin. There, see what I did? I explained the plot in about 20 seconds. The game, however, takes 5 minutes of a looping 3D model animation of Merlin captured in a cage with Preva riding around on her broom. It's amazing how boring this is. And what's worse is that once you get into the game, it feels nearly impossible to win. All the problems with the regular arcade mode are replicated here. Only in this mode, you have access to a drivable overworld of sorts, which looks like a heavily dumbed down version of the Diddy Kong Racing overworld. There are also 2 other modes, Time Trial and Tournament, but just know that they are equally as bad as everything else in this game. Next up is Freefall 350 AD, which has an intro describing the story that, like Merlin Racing, is also around 5 minutes. Unlike Merlin Racing though, stuff actually happens. The plot of this game is that a sea virus of some sort threatens humanity, so everyone goes to live up in the skies in cities that are floating, I guess, or something. They really don't get into the details about that. You're a member of the Police Drop Corps, a police agency that fights against crime syndicates that are trying to take over these sky cities. And how do you fight against crime? By jumping out of a building and fighting criminals on your way down. First impression, this game is freaking terrible. The controls are confusing, stiff, and don't seem to do anything. That's about the time I made a discovery about the Nuon. There are 8 games for this console, and while the original system that I have came out with this controller called the Warrior Digital Gamepad, including this controller, there are a total of 4 controllers for the Nuon. 4! Each one seems to feature a different layout and a different button set. One looks exactly like a Nintendo 64 controller, complete with a thumbstick. Another looks like a variation of the original PlayStation controller, and another third-party controller made by Logitech offers a different layout with seemingly the same button options as the N64 ripoff version. But why does that matter? Well, Freefall 350 AD seems to require the use of one of the controllers with the extra buttons and thumbstick. That's right, folks. This console, with a limited library of games, couldn't even give you the ability to play all the games with the basic controller bundled in with the original unit. God! Other than the fact that this game is unplayable, I have no idea what to make of it. Even for the time when it was released, these graphics are really not that good looking. Overall, I'm pretty sure had I got the right controller to actually play this thing, I probably wouldn't have liked it. So if you are looking to buy this console and you want to play Freefall 350 AD, you need to find a really hard to find and obscure controller. Good luck on that. So that leaves one final game, the last game unique to the Nuon that has never seen a release outside of this system. Tempest 3000. On the Atari Jaguar, there was a Tempest 2000, which was based off the original Tempest game that was an arcade game years and years ago. This is really important, because Tempest 3000 may well be the best game on the Nuon. Is it worth picking up a system for? You know what? Maybe. This game isn't that bad. It takes a lot of the features from Tempest 2000 and gives it a more visual edge. It feels a little bit slow compared to Tempest 2000, not as fast in gameplay, but it does have a very addictive premise, which is pretty much just Tempest. If you're a fan of the original Tempest arcade game, you're probably going to dig this game. But if you're a fan of Tempest 2000 for the Atari Jaguar, well, this game is totally the next step in its evolution. The funny thing about this is that Tempest 2000 is one of the key titles for the Atari Jaguar. Ask anybody that owns the system. They'll probably tell you that the best game to come out on the platform was Tempest 2000. So I find it hilarious that the exact same group that made that system managed to make another system, and the best game that they could have on the system was a sequel to Tempest 2000. This version of the game only exists on the Nuon. You will find it nowhere else, which is amazing. Maybe it's a collector's item, I really don't know. It's not that difficult to find. I mean, you can order it on Amazon, and well, it's just a simple game, but it shows some kind of proof that this console was capable of doing some pretty cool things. Much like Tempest 2000, Tempest 3000 has its own soundtrack, and it's pretty solid. Now, while you could have a lot of fun with those other games I mentioned, torturing yourself, Tempest 3000 is the game that you would probably go back and play again and again and again. Is it better than Tempest 2000? Well, that's all up to perspective. Personally, I prefer this version, but that's just me. And there you have it, the story of the Nuon, a system so epically flawed that by the time it came out, no one paid attention to it. And I'm pretty sure that most people out there don't even know it exists. I recommend that the next time you're going through pawn shops or anything like that, you keep your eye out for one of these systems, because if you can manage to find one, it's a cool system to try out. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I just wanted to throw a quick thank you out there to the Cambridge Pawn Shop that actually lent me this system for free. And thank you so much to Lazy Game Reviews for actually sending me the games, because I wasn't able to get them where I live. I really hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and there's going to be more later on, so be sure to stay tuned for more episodes in the future.